So just hold them during these plantings.
Correct. Another thing, what is also a recent development in the U.S. and affecting the agriculture is that a lot of the slaughter plants in the U.S. Or several slaughter plants in the U.S. has been closed down due to the coronavirus because the workers were infected, and that's has been negatively affecting the generally both the hog and the cattle futures. And we also had outbreak of the avian flu in South Carolina in one of the turkey flocks, and so generally the demand from the livestock sector is also weaker.
Yes.
So that's not helping the situation. On the positive side, for the crush numbers, as far as the soybeans go, we had record crush numbers, but the export number is not competitive for the soybeans. So right now there's no competition, and the domestic users are domestic processors are basically the only market for soybeans at the moment.
So talking about soybeans, the main factor I think which impact the planting's intention is future of trade between the United States and China. And we understand that now the situation is very unclear. It's very difficult to predict what will be, but we have seen some vessels coming to China from United States with wheat and especially with sorghum. So what is your feeling? How will develop, trade relationship between two countries, and how it will impact soybean market of United States and in the world?
Okay, so basically, since the phase 1 agreement was signed and the implementation, we have seen China buying some corn and sorghum and hard-red winter wheat from the U.S. They bought a little bit of soybeans, but they continue to buy Brazilian soybeans in style. So we don't expect that to significantly change, because the Chinese are good traders, and in the agreement, basically it says that they will buy U.S. products if the market conditions are right. Okay, and if the market is cheaper in Brazil, they will continue to buy from there, and they will buy from the U.S. what they need, and that's going to be more in the line of eventually we anticipate that they will probably buy ethanol from the U.S. And then sorghum and maybe some more wheat, but the ethanol is a lot more logical choice for the Chinese, because it's not political like corn is, and really from the U.S. standpoint, it really doesn't matter whether China buys ethanol or corn, because ethanol is nothing but processed corn.
But sorghum is also a big market, and sorghum is a spring plant, so maybe this is a good moment for American farmers to plant more sorghum. Is it possible to change some areas from corn to sorghum?
The thing is that in the main corn belt, sorghum is not viable economically for the farmers to grow. So, I mean, maybe in western South Dakota, you could grow sorghum, but really, sorghum is grown basically below the corn belt,
to the south, exactly.
To the south. So
so some regions could switch, but only where climate will allow to do that.
Yes, but you see down south, for example, the cotton acres are going to be down, and there's going to be some switching, but it is yet to be
not huge things.
Not huge. I don't think it's going to be overly significant, but the sorghum market is really strong in the U.S. Because of the Chinese interest, and the Chinese use the sorghum basically. They have mostly use it for their national drink, and right now that market will continue to be strong. But and the U.S. is also in a position to supply a lot of pork to China, but they are not alone in that regard, because Brazil has quite a bit of production, and they will ship to China as well, and really that has been one of the bigger disappointment for U.S. farmers, that they anticipated that China will buy a lot of pork from the U.S. And really the prices has not responded to that. In fact, it went the other way around, and we have really depressed hog prices right now. And the Chinese did buy some pork, but the production got ramped up higher in the U.S. And that didn't help the prices.
So Brazil here will be competitive again, like in soybeans. Brazilian pork will be more competitive on Chinese market, at least currently. We can see this picture.
Yes, I mean right now the real $1 is over five real, and in that situation it just takes the U.S. farmer out of the market.
Interesting. Overall, watching what's going on in the world, very interesting trend. We see now that many export countries, grain exporters, just in the list of making bans for export, Kazakhstan, Romania, and Russia make this limits. The Ukraine said we could ban. So we look like we're in the face of completely new trading reality. What is your estimation, how the whole situation, because every country, even big exporters with a huge sulfur, now thinking about self-sufficiency, now thinking about keep big stocks, and thinking about less thinking about trade, thinking more about domestic prices. On your opinion, will it change for some long time global trade, or it will be just just very short time, and because no one could stop trade, even pandemic, or we're just in the beginning of a new era when we will see that stocks will be bigger everywhere and trade will decrease for a long time, for like 3-4 years? How do you think?
Well, okay, so we already saw some countries like Egypt announcing that they're going to increase the stocks. And we anticipate that that's going to be the case for most countries. And I think China obviously is going to do a restocking for the state reserves. And I think it really depends on how this virus situation is unfolds, because for example, there hasn't been a lot of talk about India, but India is a big producer and user of wheat, for example, and they are in a lockdown. And if the lockdown situation continues, they could end up having problems with the harvest. And India has been a growing economy as well, and I think they will. The government will make sure that food is not an issue there. So I could see a bigger restocking program there, but that is yet to be seen. Overall, short term, we anticipate that there could be disruption at ports if the coronavirus spreads further. And realistically, I think the expectation is that it is going to spread further because, for example, South America on the coronavirus timeline is they just started per se. Okay, so the way the curve goes,
yeah, quoting Mr. Trump, yeah, they're not.
They will have more cases, and that could become an issue. And when you have uncertainties, then people want to make sure that there's enough supply, so they double buy in that case, so that could be a factor. But overall, what we see from this coronavirus is that it is really affecting the global economy. Now projections are for the U.S. that the GDP, the second quarter GDP could be 20% lower, and overall the annual GDP could be like 9% lower. So these are huge numbers, but what we are seeing is that the effect, the biggest effect is really the emerging market currencies, and we see further weakness possibly there, and overall that puts the U.S. in a difficult position in the export market. But as far as the global trade goes, I think that the trade flows might change, but overall, I think that the trade volume shouldn't decrease too much, because just to give you an idea, what we see in the U.S. is people stocking up on certain products and food supplies, and now we're hearing the same thing.
And big houses, of course.
And we hear the same thing in Russia, that people stack up on certain food products like flour and
buckwheat is a big deal here. Yes, strategic commodity here.
And in general, I think that's going to be true for everyone. And
it will be like a habit for some time for all people, after, no matter how, maybe it will finish fast, but people for a very long time will have this habit to have some stocks in their houses. It's a deal.
Correct. And I think what's going to happen is really going to be a function of how this coronavirus situation will end, because now we hear projections that there are likely to be more than one wave of the coronavirus, and there are experts saying that it could come back in the fall.
November, yeah.
And if we have another lockdown situation, that's going to be really difficult for the economy. And I think because of the generally speaking, because of how interconnected we are, I think there will be no continent or countries immune to the virus. So what I understand is they say that either we achieve herd immunity, or there's a vaccine available which works, but the current situation is not indicating either of that.
It's not clear at all.
And they say that the vaccine could be 1 year away. This could be a lot longer situation with the virus than we initially anticipated it, and that's why I think everything is in a fluid situation as far as what's going to happen. But generally, short term, what we see is that the U.S. dollar will continue to get stronger, and that is a headwind for the U.S. Agricultural exports. Short term, crude oil prices are going to be under pressure, so we don't see a significant change in the margin structure or profitability for the ethanol, and basically what that means, in our opinion, that we see upside in the prices as far as futures prices in Chicago, but limited upside, and we're not overly bullish right now.
So you don't think that cost of productions of farmers will increase, and the whole logistics will be more expensive, so it could lead us logically that in near future their food will be more expensive?
The food could get more expensive, but that doesn't mean that the raw commodities will get more expensive in the U.S. I mean, realistically, what we see is that there's probably going to be another production cut necessary from OPEC plus, and everybody, as far as crude oil goes, to take care of the excess supplies, because the current agreement only takes effect in May 1, and right now the production, everybody ramped up the production, and storage is going to be an issue, right now we already see the actual what they call wet barrels, the actual crude oil trading at single-digit dollars per barrel, significant discount to the board. Right now, board futures are for West Texas Intermediate is basically $20 for May futures, and you see the actual market prices in single digits, and Saudi Arabia also lowered their offering prices to Southeast Asian consumers. So the price war is still going on as far as crude oil goes, and that needs to change before everything else can change. The other thing is that we see a lot of uncertainty and a lot of risk-off behavior from the macro funds, and that continues to weigh on the prices. And seasonally, corn prices should go higher because of planting uncertainties and weather and everything else. But we see that this year there's going to be less risk premium built into the prices than normally you would expect. On one hand, because of the global situation, and on the other hand, because of the increasing stocks in the U.S. and less usage.
And what about wheat? As I understood that winter wheat was not in perfect, condition. And what is currently the estimation and forecast for winter wheat yields and for the price in the wheat United States?
Well, okay, so right now we had the lowest acres planted in the U.S. We don't know how the current the hard red winter wheat situation is going to be, because they're expecting actually very cold temperatures tonight in parts of Kansas and the hard red winter wheat region. Generally, the wheat exports have been good, especially for new crop from the U.S. standpoint, and we see wheat prices increasing at the main competitors like in Russia and in Ukraine, the demand has been good. We anticipate that, for example, Brazil will probably step into the market and they will buy more wheat. Egypt just tendered last night for more wheat. So the demand has been good, but overall, the global stocks are plenty for wheat. Okay, quality wheat for what we understand, the Chinese have a lot of wheat stocks, but our understanding is that the quality is not very good of the stocks. So it's probably similar to what they had with corn, that they had a lot of corn stocks, but they had to basically pay the industrial users to take the corn because it was no longer usable. So wheat has a better demand picture, but unless further problems arise, we see limited upside in wheat, okay? Because our understanding is that, for example, southern Russia and parts of Ukraine were dry, but now they're getting moisture, so...
but still not enough.
Still not enough, but it's improving a little bit. So it's a moving target, but overall, we expect, because wheat is a main staple for the world, so a wheat trade is probably going to be the strongest one for the next 3 to 6 months, and price will depend on what happens in the major growing regions. But basically, wheat is unique in the sense that every 3 months you have a harvest someplace, and right now we would need another shortcoming someplace to elevate the wheat prices further. But our anticipation is, if Ukraine and Russia comes in with a decent crop, then that will limit
export
the wheat
potential.
the export potential.
Okay, so watching the weather, because it's quite cold here. It's, cold is one more, concern, not only lack of rains, but also quite cold. And we have several, frost and snow heats in some regions of Ukraine. So it's very unexpected what's going on with weather everywhere. So next week, maybe 2 weeks, also weather will be the main topic to watch in this part of the world.
Correct. And like I said, okay, so in Kansas, a big share of the crop is in a stage where it's vulnerable to cold, so it's a moving target. I think in 2 to 4 weeks we have a better idea on the wheat situation.
Everywhere, yes.
And would have to make another assessment at that point. I think.
Pricing, right? Agree with you. So, how is overall mood in the United States? How is overall situation? You are not in total lockdown. I think it depends upon state, right?
Yes, but I would say in general, where the population density is high, like big cities like New York and LA and New Orleans and Detroit and Chicago, that's where the virus has been a lot more significant, because it's very difficult to keep the social distance in New York when you go down to the subway. The Midwest, where the population density is a lot lower, the virus has been not as severe, but the shortage of testing kits really means that even in the US, we were not able to test everybody, so we really don't have a true picture on the number of infections. But generally speaking, where the population density is lower, then the issue, the virus issue hasn't been as severe as in the very populous states.
Thank you so much. Yes, for comments, and I hope you will be safe and have hope you soap. And hope to see you on our next conference, and I hope it will be not very long time. We will meet again, and you will be join our panels and make great presentation as you always
Correct.
do.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. So you take care, and then I think for the foreseeable futures, the Zoom conferences are going to be the way to go, unfortunately.
Right. Yes, thank you so much, and have a good day.
You too.
And say hello to Minnesota. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, will do. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.